What's up, everybody? How's it going out there? So it's morning. It's Sunday morning. It's right around 7. I should have been up a little earlier than this, but I had to. Well, I mean, I should have been starting earlier, not up. Should have been starting earlier, but I had to go to the store and pick up a couple things because I forgot. And I figured today I'd make some homemade biscuits and gravy. And I can't have the biscuits and I can't have the gravy, but maybe I'll just make some grits or something for myself. And maybe in the next video I'll show you how to make some kick-ass French toast. But let's make some homemade biscuits and gravy. Southern biscuits and gravy. When I could eat like everybody else, this used to be one of my favorite things. Especially like chicken fried steak with gravy. So, but since I got celiac and food allergies now, it's not happening. And you're going to have to forgive me if you hear me sniffing and coughing. I'm getting older over a virus. So let's go ahead and get started with the biscuit dough because this is going to take us the longest. And just get a normal bowl here. And anytime that you're baking, measurements need to be pretty close to what they're supposed to be. You can eyeball stuff sometimes, but a lot of times when it comes to breads, it's almost like an exact science. Now, we're going to be using self-rising flour, okay? What's the difference between self-rising flour and just regular unbleached flour? Well, self-rising flour basically already has stuff that's added to it, things like baking powder and baking soda and whatnot. And it basically allows the dough to proof, okay? And it's not yeast. We're not going to be using yeast in our biscuits, okay? So if you have unbleached, just regular all-purpose flour, you can still use that. You're just going to have to add baking powder and baking soda, okay, and a little bit of salt and stuff. We're still going to add some salt, but we're going to start off. Let's get going on this. We're going to start off with 2 cups of self-rising flour. Now this is going to make about 12 biscuits, okay, and after this I'm going to add just a touch more to make it up to that 2-cup mark. I think right there is probably about 2 cups. Keep the flour out because we're going to need this stuff. And I'm just using cheap-ass Walmart flour, right? What's it called? Great Value? Whatever. I used to buy all that nice fucking flour and shit, but there's really no point in it. It's all poison, right? So anyway, this is going to work just fine. If you want to add a little bit of extra insurance to make sure that this fluffs up, you can add a little bit more baking powder to it. Thing about baking powder, okay, is it has an expiration date. After a while, it becomes where it's not as efficient. So if the baking powder that you've had in the cupboard for like 2 years is still in there, pick up some new baking powder. It's cheap, okay? So now we're going to add our fat. Now you can use butter. There's nothing wrong with using butter. You can use about a stick of butter, which will be probably good enough. You can always add a little bit more if you want. I'm going to be using butter flavored Crisco because quite honestly this tastes more like butter than butter does, okay? So if you really want to get that real strong buttery flavor, this is the way to go. But you can use butter. It's not a big deal. You can just throw a stick in there. Now you want this to be cold, okay? And I'm going to put about that much. Does that look about right? That looks about right. I'm going to add a little bit more. So about a half of one of these. And this is a half a cup. So we're going to be putting in, like a quarter of a cup of our fat. And you don't want to use oil. You want to use something that's hard like this, right? So butter or Crisco or whatever. But don't use regular Crisco. Use the butter flavored. And you want this to be really cold. So I've kept this in the refrigerator. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fork and I'm just going to keep kind of pushing this Crisco through the flour until it turns into small little crumbly pieces, and it is throughout all of the dough, okay? Because what's going to give the biscuit not only its flavor but that flakiness is basically small little globules of fat, okay? And you don't want to overwork this and you don't want to melt it, okay? You just want to keep working this, and this is going to take a while, okay? Some people will freeze their butter and then they'll take it to a grater and then they'll grate it, which is fine. You can do that. Okay. One of the key things though about biscuits is you don't overwork the dough. Now during the time that we're doing this right here, we can work this as much as we want for the most part. In fact, if you want to, you can take this and put this in a food processor and let the food processor chew up all of this fat and let it combine with the flour. Okay, so that way you've got, you know, equal pieces and they're small and everything's mixed real well. Okay, so you can do that if you want to. For me, using a fork is just fine. This is the way it's been done for years and years and years. But we basically want a bunch of little chunks, a bunch of little guys all over the place. And, you know, looking at this, I'm almost wanting to put a little bit more butter flavored Crisco in here. I'm going to work it just a little bit more, but I kind of would like to see more little chunks. See, this already smells like butter. You know something, I'm going to add a little bit more fat to this. And then what we're going to do is after we're done adding a little bit more fat, I'm going to, see, because I'm kind of going by the way that it looks, right? That's kind of, it seems to me that it needs to be a little bit more globular. And also, you do not want this stuff to heat up. You don't want these globs to melt. You know, you want that. You want these like little boulders of flour and fat. You don't want to get these guys to melt. So as soon as we're done doing this, and we're trying to keep everything as cold as possible. And if you do mix this by hand, you want to keep your hands cold. Like, you don't want warm hands. You know, you don't want this fat to melt on you. Okay. Okay. Make sure there's no big chunks. That all looks good to me. That looks good. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our wet ingredients. And our wet, well, we're just going to use a cup of buttermilk. You might be saying, Will, I don't have any buttermilk, and I don't want to buy buttermilk just for one recipe. It'd be better just to buy the pre-made biscuits. And you're right. Probably would be better. So if you don't have buttermilk, you can just use some whole milk and put a little bit of vinegar in it. Stir that up, and that'll give you a little bit of that tang as well, because it's the acidity, it's the acid flavor of the butter, of the buttermilk, that kind of gives it the flavor. But no matter what, make sure it's chilled. And we're going to just kind of stir this until it's incorporated, but we do not want to overwork it, okay? And this is going to be a sticky mess. But we're just, man, this already smells like a really good biscuit, right? Okay, but we're just want this flour to incorporate by folding and not stirring. And believe it or not, that's it. That's it. You see that I didn't stir the hell out of it. You see I didn't put it in a bread maker. Okay. I just want that to get incorporated. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it in the refrigerator for about 10 minutes, and I'm going to chill it, let this dough kind of absorb some more of that liquid, let all this stuff kind of get together and be nice, while I set up an area that I can roll this out on. So let's go ahead and get this dough out. We're going to gently just kind of put it out here on this surface, okay? And we're going to try to bring this together into one big like lump. And once again, we're not trying to overwork this. We're just trying to get this stuff together, okay? Something along those lines, okay? And now that we know that this is pretty much together and it's acting as just like one piece, we're going to throw some flour here on this. This is going to help prevent it from sticking and shit. Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to go ahead and we're going to push down on it, try to flatten it out. A little flour up on top just so it doesn't stick, even though this is Teflon coated. And I'm going to try to pull this out to where it's about a half of an inch thick. Okay? Or thinner. Doesn't really make a difference. Something along those lines. Like that, okay? And then we're going to take one of these ends and we're going to fold this over. Bring this back. And we're going to do it again. This damn paper is moving. Okay. One of the reasons why you don't want to overwork the dough is because it's going to mess up the fat that's in here, but also it's going to create gluten. And gluten is what makes it stretchy. Going to fold it over again. We're going to keep doing this like over and over. And then so now we're at 3 times, right? Now, how many layers do you think we've already made? You know, we've done it 3 times. So the first time it was 2. We had 2 layers. We do it again. Now it's 4, and now that we're at 3, we're at 8 layers. So we've done 8 layers at 3. Because 2, 4, 8, right? Now when we do it, we're going to be getting 16 when we do it next. We'll have 16 layers. Okay, so we go ahead and fold that. I'm going to go this way this time. Now we've done with this, we have 32 layers. Okay, this is one of the ways that you make it real flaky and have it where it looks like it steps up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to roll this to where it's about a ½ inch thick. Okay. You know something? Let's do one more layer. Let's do one more. Let's do 64. What do you say, huh? I'm going to take some of this, put it here. In fact, let's try to get a little bit of this more even. Okay. And when it starts sticking to your roller, throw some more flour on it. Or if it starts sticking to the counter, or like wherever you're rolling it, put some more flour on it. And this will be the final. So now we've got like 64 layers. It's Damascus bread, right? There we go. We're ready. We're ready to go ahead and start putting this on our cookie sheet. And I'll usually put some parchment down just because it's easier to clean up, okay? I don't know if I have any parchment, but we're gonna turn the oven on, preheat it to 450 degrees. Now when baking, this is something that you might not know. The color of your pan, and the thickness of it changes like the cooking. If it's real thick, it's going to take longer to heat up, but then when it heats up, it's going to hold on to that heat a lot longer. If it's real thin, it's not going to take as long to heat, okay? And you kind of want the thicker one, if possible, okay? Because it's not going to be as prone to temperature changes and burning. If it's a dark pan, it's also going to change like how fast it heats up. If you have a really thin, cheap pan, and then you put your biscuit down, the top might look perfect, but the bottom might be burnt. Okay, and it's because of the type of pan. So you kind of want a thicker pan. When you buy cookie sheets and stuff like that, you might be prone to wanting to buy a real cheap one. but you get what you pay for when it comes to cooking utensils. And generally, the thicker it is, the better it is. Now this is a big ass biscuit cutter. This is more for cookies or something, I'm not sure. But what we're going to do is we're going to come through and we're just going to push straight down on these. Okay? We're not twisting, we're going to push straight down. And we're going to try to get as many of these as we can out of this dough. So be conscientious of what you're doing here. But then again, these are man-sized biscuits. And there's no way I'm going to get 12 out of this. Not with this size of a biscuit. Okay. But this is basically the type that you would want to use like for like a sandwich, like if you're going to make a breakfast sandwich. So we're going to take these and we're going to, when we put them on the, let me move some of this stuff out of the way, but we want these to actually touch one another. It's going to help them rise. Okay, so we're basically, we want them like that. Now see, I've got room for a couple more, and I have some biscuit dough left over. Now this is the problem, okay? And that is the more that I work this, the tougher these biscuits are going to get, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to squeeze this together as best as I can, and then roll it out one more time. Now the rest of this biscuit dough, might as well have some fun with it. There's no reason to waste it, you know. So I'm going to take this and just kind of straighten it up in like a thing like this, and roll it out. So I've got the rest of the remainder of the dough here, and I thought I would cut this and make it like a square biscuit. Okay, so now that I've got all of this stuff set up or whatever, and these biscuits are ready to go into the oven, we can start working on our sausage gravy. Now I'm going to put everything away, clean up, because and I'm not going to be using my self-rising flour for my gravy. I need to use unbleached normal flour. So that gets put away, and then I grab my regular flour. Okay, so I've got a pan heating up, and I'm just going to be using some Farmer John classic sausage, okay? And, you know, you might say, well, what's the difference, Will, between just ground up pork and sausage? Like, what's the difference? Well, seasoning, and that's it. And I might end up doing a video on how to make homemade sausage, because you can do it out of turkey, you can do it out of pork, whatever, because it's all about the seasoning. And hopefully with you guys watching these videos, you start learning about what seasonings go with what, like with what, I don't want to call it a food palette, but there's some things that use certain seasonings. There's certain types of foods that use certain seasonings that give it the smell and the flavor that everybody attributes that particular thing with. Like, so with sausage, for instance, it's sage. Sage is what everybody knows is that smell for sausage, as well as the taste. I'm looking for something I can stir this up with, but the camera's kind of in the way and I don't want to move it. But what I want to do is I want to take this sausage and kind of break it up into chunks. Okay. You can use links too. You can just, you know, take them out of their wrappers. It doesn't make a difference. You can use that. Just, you know, you want a flavorful sausage for your gravy. That's all. And don't worry about the stuff sticking on the bottom. We kind of actually even want some of that, because we're going to be making what's known as a roux here in a little bit. But we kind of want to break this stuff up. That beep means that my oven has hit my 450 mark. So I'm going to put my biscuits in, and those are going to cook for about 15 minutes. right around 10 minutes, you start looking at them biscuits, because you want to make sure that those guys are cooked, but you don't want to wait for them to overcook. You know, when they're golden brown, they're good to go. And they're going to do a little bit of cooking as soon as you take them out of the oven as well. Let me stir this up a little bit more, and then let me brown some of this. But during that time, I'm going to go ahead and put my biscuits in the oven. Some people will add onions to this, garlic, bacon. They'll add all sorts. You can do whatever you want. I'm keeping this simple. Okay. This is just a typical sausage gravy. Nothing over the top. I mean, this is going to be damn near delicious. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, you know, because this is great by itself. Okay. So with this, gravy is pretty much ready to start being made. So I'm gonna take some flour, and I'm gonna kind of throw it over the top of this. How much flour is dependent upon how much fat is in there, okay? That might be enough flour, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to start cooking this flour, and we want it to absorb into that fat, and we want the raw flour taste to disappear, okay? So the only way that that's going to happen is if we let this cook for a while. Some people will take their sausage out first. You know, I don't see a point in doing that. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to cook this when that dough smell kind of disappears, and you can also kind of see the flour mixture kind of turning slightly brown. Then that, you know that it's been cooked enough. I'm going to add a little bit more flour to this. So if you have a lot of fat in here, you'll have to pour it out, okay, if you have a lot of fat. But it didn't look like there was a lot of fat to me. I'm going to start off with a cup, just regular milk. This is 2%. And this is not going to reach its full thickening power until it boils, okay? And then we want these particles on the bottom to kind of come up. Okay, like all of this, like little burnt stuff, because there's a lot of flavor there. And you'll see that we need more milk. Okay, so there was definitely enough flour. Try to clean the pan. We want all of that stuff up. We want that inside the gravy for the flavor. Once again, we're going to bring this up to a boil, so we can get the full thickening power. And during the time that that's going on, I'm going to add my black pepper. I think that's a good texture. I think that's a good texture right there. Okay, but I'm going to add my black pepper to that. Okay, and then I'm going to add some cayenne to this. Couple of 3 hits of cayenne. Mix all this up. Do you see how it's still thickening even though I turned the fire off? That's kind of what I was talking about. And you know, when you put this on your biscuits, how do you want it to set? You know, do you want it to kind of run off the sides? Do you want it to be you know, real thick like this? I think that this looks pretty good. Okay, so the biscuits smell like they're doing really good. At this point, I'm going to taste this, see if I have to add salt to it, which I probably will. I definitely need to add salt to this. And I'm also going to add some more milk to this because that's a little too thick. Let's turn this back on. I did a little bit of tasting, and it honestly tastes like it needs a little bit more sage to give it more of that familiar sausage flavor. So I'm adding some sage to it. And I've added some salt. I've added a little bit more milk to it. Okay, and as soon as this comes to a boil, we should be good at this point. Okay, because it tastes right. And right now my biscuits smell like they're done. They are. So I pulled these guys out, as you can see right here, and these guys actually puffed up a lot more than I thought they would. I was actually surprised by that. So now our gravy is how I want it. Okay, this is a lot better. I've cooked it a little bit longer. That sage helped with the smell. It helped with the flavor. I added a little bit of salt to it. You got to keep adding salt until it tastes right. I added some more black pepper to it. Okay, cayenne. There's enough there. Let me taste it one more time. That tastes pretty damn good to me. I'm going to add some black pepper again. Oh, I wish I could eat this. I can't. Go ahead and we'll grab one of our homemade biscuits. Look at that. Look at that. I'm telling you. I know what I'm doing, devil woman. We'll open up another one. So that way we can put our gravy in there. But we'll take our plate. We'll take our biscuits. And see how it's, yeah, I like it where it sticks to the gravy, like sticks to the biscuits, you know. Nothing worse than the runny gravy. And there you go, guys. You know that looks good. You know that that's the bomb right there. I mean, read it and weep. I'm telling you. Anyway, guys, that's that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and you learned something from it. Yeah, like I said, maybe what I'll do is on the next time around, I'll do some French toast. And also maybe how to make perfect eggs. A lot of people screw up with eggs. I don't know why it's so hard for people to do that. But biscuits and gravy, dog. See, if you don't say dog, it's not manly, right? It's like, biscuits and gravy, sir? Nah. Dude, right here, your biscuits and gravy, motherfucker. There you go, dude. Alright, guys. Till next time, man. I'll talk to you later.